Welcome to another exciting episode of Superiority. Today we have Francesca Sutherland, who is our Commercial and Professional Services Recruitment Manager here at Superior Recruitment. With an extensive career spanning more than a decade in the recruitment industry, Fran has established herself as a prominent figure in the fiercely competitive Aberdeen market. Fran specialises in commercial and professional services. Her wealth and knowledge and well-established network within this sector positions her as the ideal leader for our Aberdeen operations, and we're thrilled to have Fran join our podcast to share her insights and expertise. Fran, thank you very much for joining us today. Obviously, we're working very closely together, and we thought it was good to have you on as one of our first guests of Superiority. We want to get future leaders and thought leaders involved with our podcast. Why not tell the world about what it is we're trying to achieve in Aberdeen and a bit about your background? So, Fran, for those who don't know you, do you want to share a little bit with our listeners about yourself, your journey in the recruitment industry, how you got started, and in particular, how you fell into or how you're working within commercial and professional services?
Yeah, of course. So, kind of as you said, Gareth, to be honest, like so many recruiters in the industry, I fell into it. I was studying at St Andrews, doing neuroscience and physiology of all things. Can't say I'm using that much. Goes hand in hand. But yeah, I fell into it and ended up down in London for a few years. And to be honest, I was moving up to Aberdeen to be closer to family. And for love nor money, couldn't find a job. And eventually an internal recruiter reached out to me, did a quick telephone interview. And then after a grilling interview with a previous ops manager of my previous employer, Office Angels, I started as a recruitment consultant. I was doing perms initially, and then after just shy of a year, I got promoted to branch manager. And then about a decade later, and 13 years later, I'm still in recruitment. And I think commercial, professional services, I really enjoy it. I think it's placing people like ourselves, something that kind of peer recruitment effectively. I think I really enjoy seeing people's career trajectory. Quite often I think there's always one placement I remember I got asked by one of my oil and gas clients to, I think it was like an office junior role or data entry administrator. And that gentleman I placed, I think it was back then about 14 grand I placed him on as a full-time salary. He's now the commercial manager for the oil services company. So seeing that over the kind of decade trajectory of his career with that same employer is just really nice to see. And so, I think I love recruitment. I really, really do. And I think I've kind of stayed within the commercial and professional services side of things because, it's enjoyable.
Well, I think that's the thing. I've been in the game a long time like yourself, and I think recruitment is either something you love or it's just not for you. I don't think you can say it as a job. It has to be a career, something you're passionate about.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it's conquering a sector, a geography, clients you've wanted to work with for years and you eventually get in, whether it's the lovely feeling to place candidates into career-changing journey, on a career-changing journey, then, there's lots of different reasons for it. But no, I appreciate that. Now, how have you seen... You've been in it for 13, 14 years. You mentioned starting salaries of 14,000. Look how salaries have changed. This question wasn't on our pre list of questions, so I'm going to throw you right there.
Thanks for that.
No problem. What's some of the biggest changes you've seen, apart from the obvious salaries and things like that? What's the biggest challenges you see now in recruitment?
It's totally different, and especially think, and again, I think most of our competitors would say the same. It's very different post-COVID. There's kind of a BC post-COVID, kind of before COVID, etc. transition for recruitment. I'd say 10, 11 years ago, we would post adverts, there'd be a huge influx of CVs. You'd go through, you'd pick your top 5 or top 3 candidates and you'd send them over to your client. It was a very kind of cold call, very, chasing clients' vacancies. You had almost like a file of decks on your desks for speaking to candidates, window adverts for kind of walk-ins, etc. It's totally different. I remember my ops manager said, "Oh, I really want you to go into LinkedIn," and we were like, "What's that?" It was just unheard of. It just, if you even look at the number of signups for LinkedIn and how successful that business has been for going after the things that we would go after, whether it be clients or candidates, totally different. For me, I think the biggest challenge or the biggest change it's not recruitment in the same way. It's headhunting and executive search. That's basically what recruitment is. Very rarely do you get a candidate saying, "Oh, I've seen this admin job or I've seen this HRBP job that you're recruiting for,"
Yeah.
and it just marries up like that. We have to tackle the skills pool shortage that's massively across all industries just now, of various different reasons people don't want to move, or if they are wanting to move, the expectations that each candidate has is a big old list. You have to be quite nimble in the market as a client, as a recruiter, and as a candidate. It's that juggle is much more evident now than it was even just a few years ago prior to COVID, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that in any way. I mean, we look at a lot of businesses in 2023 that we work with as new clients, whether it was from a cold approach or they were recommended to us. One of the biggest things we saw as a business across 2023 is actually trying to educate clients on outdated processes, perhaps. What worked before COVID does not necessarily work
No.
today.
No.
Or you certainly probably don't get the same results. You do mention headhunting and ways that the recruitment industry has changed. I think what we found post-COVID, and because of some of the sectors we work in and the economy being fairly buoyant, certainly the recruitment industry is buoyant, candidates have such a choice. So you've got to stand out. I speak to lots of, as you do, lots of stakeholders who are our clients and say, well, I've used Indeed or I've put an advert out there and I'm getting nothing but rubbish. It's because candidates don't necessarily have to use them portals or them tools as much, because they've got Fran from Superior, they've got Gareth from Superior on the phone hassling them, chasing them, LinkedIn, whatever tools using to get them. So yeah, I think recruitment is always changing. The game itself, the end result is exactly the same, but the tools and the methodology, you've got to evolve with that. You've got to change with that.
Definitely. I think old school recruitment is ultimately, recruitment as an industry never changes. It's one of those rare industries that you've got two customers, which isn't usually the case. You've always got candidates and clients, and there's kind of age old argument in recruitment, which one's more important than the other, and there's no winner. If you don't have a candidate, you've got no product. If you don't have clients, you've got no business. And it's that cyclical kind of customer service that you have to do to make sure both parties are happy at all time, and it really is, no one is more important or than the other, because if your candidate's not happy, your client's not going to be happy, and then vice versa. So I think I think recruitment, although in its essence will never change, you've got a client's requirement, you've got a candidate who wants a job. It should be a nice easy marry up of the two.
There's a big word in recruitment, isn't it? Should.
Should. But yeah, the intricacies, and it's such a multifaceted process to get candidate to start in a job that they should want, or that are striving to get and stuff. So it should be a nice simple process, but any HR or talent acquisition industry professional would say the same. Recruitment is not an easy job at all.
No, I agree. It's you mentioned it as well, the Aberdeen market. Of all the markets, all the geographies, I've worked in, Aberdeen probably has what I would call probably the bounce back ability of most of the cities and even countries we've worked in or I've worked in over my career. Talk us through a couple of, or an occasion, because you've gone through having been at Office Angels and been in at Major prior to us managing to bring you on board. You've obviously gone through COVID with Major. You've gone through oil and gas crashes in during your time at Office Angels. Why do you think Aberdeen's so good at bouncing back?
It's a good question, and I think that there would be a lot of other industry leaders far better placed than I to answer that. But I think there's a lot of industries that are really buoyant here. The kind of increase in renewables, obviously, being the oil and gas capital of Europe, obviously with that now coming in. But everyone thinks of Aberdeen as oil and gas capital solely, but it's huge construction business here, legal, financial services, manufacturing. It's such a big buoyant city, and there's a lot of kind of entrepreneurial people out there that have set up businesses, started up years ago as one-man bands, and now they're absolutely excelling within their businesses, and that's really, really nice to see. And I think, I don't know necessarily the bounce back ability. I think it's the resilience. And yeah, I think I heard this years ago, something like during the downturn of the oil industry, it was also around the same time as the Scottish independence referendum as well. And I remember speaking to clients, and we had a load of perm decisions waiting to come through, and everyone just put the decisions on hold to say, we'll let you know after the referendum. We'll let you know after. And then just a few months after that, the whole industry just fell apart. And I was booking meetings to go out and see clients. By the time I'd get there, I started putting registration forms in my meeting folder, because I'd be out then registering a candidate, because that client was now a candidate because they'd been made redundant. It was an awful time in the city. And I think the client said to me something like 50,000 contracts held in Aberdeen had been made redundant. Now that would be short-term contracts, limited workers, etc., that would not all necessarily be based in the city and shire, but all over. But it was a huge the city got pummeled. And it was now, sticking by those clients and candidates over the years, and seeing those clients that become candidates and then now become clients again is really nice to see. And I think, it definitely does have bounce back ability, but I don't know if I know the reason as to why, but it does. The Aberdonians are resilient for sure. Absolutely.
You touch on something there about, candidates becoming clients, It is cyclical, and we see that. Obviously, you've been, do you think that's helped you, really being a specialist in the Aberdeen market, that, you haven't fluctuated out of other geographies or other sectors? You've had good candidates for the last 13, 14 years in that region. We've seen, certainly in the short time you've been with us, when this role comes in, you've already got in your mind or radar of who you want to be speaking to. Do you think that's really helped being that specialist in a designated geography?
I'd like to think so. It's really nice to see, after kind of so long in the market, there's a lot of people that you just get to know, and I really enjoy working with a client that I met with 10 years ago, and I'm like, oh, you're now this position here, and you're at this company, and I just I really enjoy recruitment. In essence, it's something that I think most recruiters are inherently nosy, and I think that's a really good quality to have as a recruiter. But it does help in the job, and I generally do have an interest. If I go out and take a vacancy from a client, like, what does your company do? Why are you recruiting for this vacancy? And I'm genuinely interested. It's not that I do that, that's just my job. I am genuinely interested as to what that career trajectory could be for that candidate if I were successfully to place them. And my candidates that have been with me on and off for so many years, to see them back on my books, it's just so nice to see. But I think specialising in kind of one area is really good, but it means that I can go cross industry. So if I have, say, an accounts assistant on my books, I can place them in the legal industry, the financial industry, a manufacturing company, whatever it may be. And it means that although that my skills might be just within predominantly the commercial and professional services side of things, my client comes to me for a design engineer, or a QHSE lead, or whether it's slightly more technical positions, or process engineer or something like that, I can still do those sorts of positions. But predominantly I like to stay in my lane, I think. And I think it gives me a bit of an edge, because I do know quite a few people out there, which is quite nice to see.
Definitely. And do you think that we used this saying quite a bit towards the end of last year, when we were doing, being honest, a lot of fresh BD? We're all classed as recruitment consultants. I think there's two parts to the job. I think the recruitment is one part, and I think the consultative part, and being a consultant to your client or the business you're working with, is the more important part. And what I mean by that, you've mentioned when you go out, you're a nosy person. Nothing wrong with that. You want to know the name of your partner's dogs. You want to know what the kids do. You want to know what the husband does. So on and so forth. I think that's a really big part of it, because it's not just being transactional. You want to work with that customer, as you've said. You've got clients that they've moved with you, and you've moved with them over the last 10, 15 years. Do you think that's a big part of it now, being consultative and actually not just seeing your client as an invoice, as unfortunately some people in the recruitment industry do?
Absolutely. I spoke to a client a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be speaker at our HR huddle coming up in a week or so. And he refuses to call agencies anymore.
Right.
He calls them recruitment partners, because I think agencies, it doesn't really, it's just a word. It doesn't really mean much. And I think, you know, Superior, I think one of the massive reasons, the main reasons I like working for this company so far is that they do have a different approach to their clients. It's the kind of professional, partner of choice, that you want to kind of go after your clients, not just to say, oh, you've got a need, I'll help you with that. It's understanding why they've got that need. It's understanding other needs in the business. I think with Superior, they are kind of superior in essence, because they're a one-stop shop, and I've not really worked for a company or seen other agencies out there, or recruitment partners, that can go after kind of business and work with their clients, like you say, in that consultative way, because they're much more nimble. If you've got the way that you set up the business is in such a linear way that if you want to speak to any consultant or director, they will be very hands-on with that recruitment approach. And if it's a case of you need to recruit in Aberdeen, in Teesside, in any position UK-wide or globally, it's still the same team. And we've got those sister businesses that you've previously mentioned on your last podcast, that we can just jump on any requirement that our client needs, and you can act as that one-stop shop. That when you have other agencies that can do that in the marketplace, the lead time that it takes for going from one part of the business who can do commercial to then offshore roles to then IT roles, or to executive search in the US or something, it takes weeks to do. And I've seen it. I've worked for a business that I'd have to pass it over to a sister company, who then doesn't get back to you, and you can't even speak internally, let alone pass something over for our clients to be able to recruit for them quickly and effectively. So I think Superior is able to do that really well. For sure.
I think it's a great answer. You're obviously you've joined us 3 months ago, I believe it was now, Fran, although it feels like about 4 years, and I mean that in a good way. Obviously, you're coming in to lead the commercial and professional services division, in particular in Aberdeen, but with a view to expanding your contacts who are non-commercial and also professional services, and making sure we can divert and work with those guys. 2 parts to the next question. What excites you about leading the new office in Aberdeen? Do you have any unique strategies or ideas you plan to implement? This is not an interview, by the way.
I was going to say, I've already given you my business plan, Gareth. No, I think it's just generally a really exciting time. And I think with the kind of expansion plans that not to give any kind of game away or anything like that, but yeah, the expansion plans that we you have for the Aberdeen office alone can only, from the way I see it personally, succeed. I think you having that multifaceted approach where you can support any client requirement very quickly, very easily. It is a really exciting time to join the business. You've got a very stable, expansive client base already in the Aberdeen market, but to be part of growing that, I think is really exciting. So there's not necessarily tricks up my sleeve or anything like that. I think 2024 generally speaking is a really exciting time. I think we've now come out of that post-COVID era, and all the majority of clients, I say, are really understanding the problems with the challenges in the recruitment market and their strategies, so they're willing and able to listen and change their practices, and therefore we're able to recruit for them a lot easier than, say, a year or two before. I don't think there's any like I say, tricks up my sleeve to go after business and rapidly expand or anything like that. I think to succeed in recruitment, you just need to be really consistent with your customer service. And I think for me, I'd like to say I can pride myself on that for candidates and clients alike. Customer service is so important, and it's such a cliche thing to say, but if you don't get it right, karma is the worst in recruitment. It'll always come back to you. And I think if you don't get back to your candidates with feedback, if you just treat them like a number, like you say. It sits uneasy with me. Recruitment's hard to keep on top of things, and you've got so many vacancies or so many candidates on your books that you know things can slip sometimes. Of course, we're all human, but if you strive for that gold standard, that superior standard, if you like, then yeah, it's a fail-safe way of succeeding. And so for me, if you, as a business and as an individual, put that gold standard in your kind of notebook and practice that day in, day out, it will always succeed, I think. Yeah.
Again, concur with what you're saying. To flip that then, and this isn't a negative sort of question, but what challenges do you see in 2024? We're a couple of weeks in, and I mean, we've obviously posted videos all week this week. We're flying already. It's really, really looking busy, and I'm super excited about it. From my side, I certainly on our temp blue collar side, I see a lot of our clients and new clients we're talking to all launching and having projects at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's already a skills shortage in some disciplines. I see that as a challenge. I see it as a great time to be a candidate in 2024 if you're on the market for the right reasons, because you're going to have such a great choice. And we see some clients and some we work with, some we don't with, where throwing money at things isn't an option, and we see that with others where it is. I see that as tricky this year, because you kind of just keep giving pay rise to attract the right candidate, because when that next crash happens, or a recession strikes or something like that, you've got major problems. But other than those, do you see any other hurdles, challenges that you can forecast in 2024?
I think the biggest thing will be the skill shortage. I think definitely that is something that's going to hit the majority of clients, and I think because of that, I think if that's the biggest problem, then facing the challenges that go to address that is probably the kind of next stage for clients and for us. Making sure that we've got the kind of skills and expertise to kind of go after the best candidates in the marketplace for our clients. Being consultative, like we said previously, I think that is so key, of just saying, you've got a vacancy, here's a candidate, great, and then you move on. It's not the way to recruit these days. I think if you understand the more holistic overview of what a client's looking for, a client will sometimes just come to you with a vacancy, and it's fine. That's all they need to do, and that's totally fine. There's no issues with that. But the majority of clients out there, it is a bigger conversation of having market insights, and I think that's again something that Superior is really, really good at, with the kind of internal tech that we can utilize to understand why a candidate's looking for a job. It's not just a case of, oh, you're on that salary, we'll bump it up by a few grand and then you'll be happy. That's 10 years ago. Understanding the full package, especially benefits, and advising our clients, excuse me, if they're struggling to recruit, give them feedback. Don't I've seen so many agencies just go, oh, I've got no CVs for that client, and they just don't speak to them, and they don't address that. Just say, this is my search so far. They're coming to you with a vacancy because usually they're struggling to fill it themselves. They might not know the reasons, because a lot of the time a client's job, hiring manager's job is 10% recruitment. The rest is their job. They don't know the reasons as to why their vacancy isn't being filled, or people move on after 12 months in the position and that vacancy bounces on and off your position over the years. And that's sometimes a bit of an uncomfortable conversation to have with your client. But I think the biggest challenge is going back to address that skill shortage. If you want that one unicorn out there in the market, explain what that unicorn wants, what that looks like, and how that client's going to get them into their business. And having that recruitment partner approach is again probably the biggest challenge to 2024 for sure.
Being consultative, isn't it? I've worked unfortunately with some recruiters who don't necessarily have the courage, perhaps might be the right word, to actually speak to their client and say, actually, on this occasion, Mr. or Mrs. Client, you're not going to get what you're looking for, but let me tell you why and how we can change that to get you that person. I think it's a really fair comment. You've obviously built up a really good network over the period you've been in the recruitment industry. what advice do you have for, recruiters who are, say, less experienced? We've got some of our team who are growing and we're watching them grow, which is fab. What advice do you have for any of them to establish themselves in the recruitment industry? What have they got to do to stand out? Because it is a saturated industry, in particular in the UK market.
Definitely. I think consistency and generally, being passionate on behalf of your clients. You can get emailed a job spec and you could just run with it. That's great. You're effectively a CV service, and then the client shouldn't really warrant a fee for what you're doing for them. If you speak to them, meet with them in whatever capacity, face to face or over, virtually, and really understand and ascertain what it is they're looking for. I think consistency of that customer service from candidate and client alike is super important. And like I say, I love my job. I really, really genuinely do enjoy recruitment. And I think if, like you said at the start, Gareth, if it's a Marmite industry, it's not for everybody. It's a bit of a pressure cooker sometimes. And if you don't have that passion and drive, and I think drive and resilience is really, really key kind of elements to recruitment. Things are so out with your control when you work with people. They do strange, weird, wonderful things a lot of the time that never make sense to me. But I think if you can strive to have that consistent approach and, forward thinking as well. So if you recruit for a client that has, a very specific niche requirement, don't forget about that. Go circle back on that and just say, look, I've actually come across this candidate that you looked for 3 years ago. If you genuinely have that passion and understanding of what your client needs, that will breed success. If you have that consistent approach of customer service, that will breed success. And I think those sort of kind of elements to your day in, day out job is, that will stand you good in good stead for this job for sure.
Fair play. Thanks. Some solid advice there. Obviously, at the moment, you're building your empire, for want of a better way of looking for it, up in Aberdeen, both clients, and you're going to build your office and grow that. We're excited to watch that grow. You're juggling a 360 role, which in itself is a tough role. We're all in them. But how do you strike a balance between sort of managerial responsibilities and staying connected to your day-to-day operations?
With difficulty? No. I think
I'll give you that.
I think, like I said, I really enjoy my job. I think being a mum of a 14-month-old who's very boisterous, I think sleep deprivation basically means I run on fumes every day. But no, I think I really am passionate about my job. So I like to succeed. So I think hard work and an organization. I think you have to be really super, super organized. There's so many things to juggle in this job. Like I said, there's 2 customers, and if you kind of let one slip, it will fall down. So I think organization is so key. And having a good memory quite helps. I can't remember my own personal appointments, but I'll remember, a temp job that somebody did for me 5 years ago, but, for 2 days for a client. But, a good memory and organization, I think, helps the juggle and that kind of balance. But it's challenging. But I think, again, if you enjoy your job, it helps for sure.
And we were speaking to Michelle, our talent acquisition manager, this week about, trying to identify the traits of your best employees. And it's funny because it's very, very hard to actually do. If I look at our top 5 performers, if you like, there's not many traits where they're all the same. Time management is definitely one. You mentioned about being organised there. I think that's a huge thing. And
Definitely.
Because you are spinning so many plates and it can change it every hour. I think, again, some good advice. Last question before we 2 points before we let you go. I'm putting you on the spot now. We'll revisit this in 12 months, I'm sure, Fran. And what thing do you want to achieve in 2024?
One thing I want to achieve, I think seeing the launch of the Aberdeen office really, really succeed. And there's not any one element of increasing heads, certain billing targets, or client base, or whatever it may be. I think that's quite a broad way of speaking. But this succession of the Aberdeen marketplace, seeing the city, bounce back and grow, and it's so busy for our clients. I don't think I've ever worked in recruitment for a festive period as busy as we've just had.
Mhm.
That was mental. Usually you're twiddling your thumbs a little bit that time of year. Quite the opposite. I think they're very, very busy, and if that's their off peak, I'm slightly scared to think what peak's going to look like. But it's really exciting, and I think the strategies and the tools that you have and the leadership team have put in place for the team have made it quite an achievable way of going after the things that, like, internally, that we've agreed to what succession looks like. So yeah, I think overall, just seeing Aberdeen office succeed, grow, expand, etc., and just exciting times ahead.
It is, and we have never been more confident that's going to happen. Last question. I'm a recruitment consultant on LinkedIn or on one of our podcast channels now, watching this, and I'm not particularly inspired in the business I'm working for at the minute. What's it like to work for Fran?
For me, great. You said the last question was the last question. I've worked in recruitment and as a manager, even probably longer, but yeah, recruitment's about 13 years now, I think, and I think I'm a great person to work for. I genuinely really enjoy seeing someone succeed. I've taken people, experienced recruiters and little juniors, from all walks of life, from admin receptionists to swimming coaches to experienced sales managers, etc., and seeing them kind of succeed, and generally that's one of my favorite as a recruitment manager, less kind of hands-on approach than I'm doing just now. I love it. That's one of my things that I really do enjoy, seeing somebody just that penny drop. And recruitment, like I say, is Marmite. It's not for everybody, but when the buzz you get in this industry is like no other, it's weirdly addictive. It's so much fun, and I think recruitment is a fun industry to work in if you are the kind of good side of Marmite when it comes to coming into that industry. If you've never worked in it before, or if, like you say, they're sitting somewhere that they're not enjoying. Superior, 3 months in, I've not felt this comfortable in a company before at this kind of early in my tenure with them. It's you're a good company, and I'm not just saying that because you're my boss, but
it's plug that at the very end. Thank you, Fran. I appreciate it. I really do. Listen, it's been absolutely a real enjoyment to do this. I've really enjoyed this one, Fran. Thank you very, very much for your time. And I'll see you in Aberdeen in the snow in the next week or two. Have a wonderful day. And for anybody who is in the Aberdeen network who may fancy a chat with Francesca or myself, by all means, feel free to reach out. We're always looking for great recruitment people. Have a wonderful day, guys, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Fran.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to our story. Remember, our community is what makes this podcast thrive, so don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's sharing your thoughts on today's topic, suggesting future topics, or just saying hello. We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping us grow. Thanks again for being part of our community. We'll catch you on the next episode.